So, Hani, do you want to introduce us about your business, and then we'll get into accounting systems?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan. So Crunchlab is a tech-oriented accounting firm based in Melbourne, Australia. We help clients in e-commerce, startup world, and across creatives as well. Um, Use Xero more effectively and cut out the busy work like admin and mundane accounting tasks.
Yeah, awesome. And are you typically, just quickly as well, like for the audience too, do you work more with small businesses or startups, or what's your or any particular vertical at all or industry?
Yeah, so we work with a mix of different clients. So we work with startups, but also, clients in e-commerce who need a lot of support around integrating their apps with Xero, which is our specialization. And we work with creative agencies and some freelancers as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. So yeah, so audience guys, we're going to be talking today with Hani about accounting systems and best practices to do effective accounting for small businesses and startups. And just from my background, obviously, workflows and processes, particularly around marketing and growth, is obviously quite important and has been something I've always been lacking in terms of understanding what are the best ways to make sure the books make sense and the books are ready when it comes to tax time, that's, whatever it is. And then obviously the ability to do forecasting and budgeting in particular to be more effective around, making better financial decisions with more accurate data. So we're very lucky to have
Yeah.
Hani today on board to obviously share his expertise, and we've got some questions and we'll be going through the conversation with him and hopefully get some great tips out of this conversation. So Hani, why is it so important, I guess, for the audience obviously watching, to have a solid accounting system in place?
Yeah, so to really make any good financial decisions, you need to make sure that the information that you're basing those decisions on is accurate and is timely and truly reflects the activities of your business. So to ensure that that information is accurate, whether that's your profit and loss or your balance sheet, or even a cash flow forecast, you need to make sure that you have the systems in place to support the collection of that information and making sure that that information flows into Xero. A lot of business owners, and even as an individual who does their own tax return, you probably find yourself in a situation sometimes where you're rushing after the end of the financial year to find all those receipts and you gather all that information. By that time, it's too late. What's already happened has happened. You want to get that data into your accounting software in real time so that you can monitor the performance of your business and make decisions to help you grow.
Yeah, and it's great because I have realized the importance of that over the years, just being obviously running businesses and being an entrepreneur myself and working out how important it is to have stuff in place and accurate, especially for the accountant when it actually comes to sorting out, making sure the data makes sense and not taking up too much of their time if things are too much of a mess, and if anything, then having to go back, check things and check records, check back, bank statements and everything like that. If everything's in the one platform, or processes right in place around collecting receipts and all that kind of stuff, it just makes everyone's life 10 times easier. But more importantly, it makes you feel confident as well that you're on top of
Yeah,
things
exactly.
in real time, to then obviously make better decisions. So no, also definitely very important. Well, I guess obviously on that note though, like, what is the best workflow or I guess tools to help you build that stack or process in order to do that with ease, but also is cost effective?
Yeah, so I really like the idea of an app stack. Obviously, within the software as a service, that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs of startups are very familiar with that term. But I think it does apply to small businesses. Whether you're a mom and pop shop or a startup. Within an app stack, you want to have your apps integrated with each other so that the amount of work that you have to do to get those apps talking to each other is very minimal. And that just minimizes the amount of time that you spend on admin and accounting. But, different apps work better for different types of clients in different industries and even different sizes. But in terms of how we work with clients, the kind of given is that they're using Xero
Yeah.
and using Receipt Bank to capture receipts. So those two tools work really, really well together. And by law, you're supposed to keep records of all of your expenses so that you can deduct those expenses at the end of the year. So Receipt Bank is not only a tool that speeds up the time in which you record your receipts, but it also helps you comply with the tax law.
Yeah.
And then in terms of other apps, it depends. Like we help clients in e-commerce implement apps like Trade Gecko and Deer, which then
Oh, yeah.
integrates with Xero.
Yeah.
And that helps them manage their business and manage their supply chain. If you're a services-based industry or a creative agency, then tools like Toggle to do timesheets or Trello to manage projects are really, really good. And then developing strategies to then integrate that with Xero projects or Xero and timesheets in Xero is then going to be very important to make sure again that all the apps are talking together within that stack and you're not having to enter in data into two different apps.
Yeah. No, sounds good. And I think on that, so obviously you work with obviously a lot of clients. I'm sure you have your workflow process in place, right? And obviously your clients would feel confident about how they use the tools and etc. And I'm sure you teach them how to do it properly as well. What advice would you give to someone, I guess, who's maybe watching this that I guess is still wondering or even deciding whether or not the right workflow is for them? What are your recommendations and best steps to, I guess, share advice or share tips so how they can, I guess, improve things on that side of things?
I think the best thing to do is, like plot out what your workflow is and, look at what are the things that are taking you a lot of time to do. And, obviously your main aim as an entrepreneur is to spend as much time doing what you love and growing the business. So anything that distracts you from that is something that you want to either eliminate, delegate, or automate. So those are the kind of the three ways in which you can, fix pain points in your workflow. But I think it's really important within that workflow, and if we're talking specifically about the accounting workflow, to have good habits in place. So one of the most basic things is if you have a business, whether you're a sole trader or a company, make sure you open up a bank account for your business. Don't mix your expenses personally with your company expenses. And that just saves so much time. It saves so much hassle. And so I think little things like that can really help you save time and create more transparency within your financial
and structure, right? Like,
exactly.
and it doesn't get messy and stuff because it can get convoluted quite quickly. And again, I've actually personally been guilty of that before, where I've mixed business, expenses and obviously income for that, then using my card, then to pay for tools or whatever it is, then to help that job. And I can like Callan's face as well when it comes to it. It's like, oh, here we go. And I'm sure it's not the first time. Many accountants like yourself would see that, right? I can see why it would be not frustrating, but it takes more time, right? To make sure you do a better job, right? Otherwise it does get very, very messy. So having that right structure in place from the beginning is obviously very important.
Yeah.
What would you say, like in terms of, you talked about habits just quickly then as well, without going over the top in like, is it something, or I guess this kind of gets to the next point, like what would be the daily or weekly habits, or I guess monthly as well, but daily and weekly habits for someone who runs a small business that they need to make sure that their books are up to date with minimal time and effort? What would you say recommend? Again, obviously it's very different for every business and circumstance, of course, so it's sometimes hard to kind of give a generalized answer, but what would you kind of, I guess, maybe suggest to your clients?
Yeah, I think it depends on how much involvement you have within the accounting function of your business. So, if you have a bookkeeper and, you're more mature and you don't have that much time as a business owner to run your own books, then I would say it's as simple as making sure you submit all your receipts using whatever app you're using. So whether you're uploading it to Google Drive or using Receipt Bank or using a HubDoc, making sure all of those documents are submitted. If you're doing your own bookkeeping, I think it's important to just have a regular time during the week or even the month where you sit down and you reconcile your accounting file. Because if you leave that till the end of the year or the quarter, it's just going to be really overwhelming. And I think it is important to have a habit of, reconciling on a regular basis, because if you're integrating Xero with a cash flow forecast app like Cenario, that is not going to be up to date if your books are not reconciled. So, I think for us, when we work with our clients, we reconcile their books weekly because we find that that's probably a good, a good kind of, time.
Cadence per se to transactions. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. No, that makes sense. Thank you for that, sharing that. I think one of the next things I want to ask was like, it's more on the forecasting side of things as well, particularly obviously while we're doing this call, right, it is obviously during COVID-19. So it's a very good time to kind of discuss this as well around, how can you structure in a time like this around forecasting assumptions, and, what are the best ways to do things? I guess it's not just COVID-19, but obviously everyone's experiencing this downturn, but, businesses face, downturns or, slow periods of sales or revenue growth, whatever it is. How do you go about, I guess, navigating through this period of time in order to do forecasting and obviously making sure that your books are up to date for that as well?
Yeah, well, in any time of uncertainty, it's going to be really difficult to forecast, because there are so many variables and we don't really know what the effects of what's happening right now are in the long term. But I think it is important that you speak to your accountant, especially if you're, in Australia, but even in the UK and America, all these different countries, even Germany, where the government is offering stimulus packages. So speak to your accountant about what you're eligible for, and obviously that's going to then be factored into your cash flow forecast, and give you a bit more support and clarity around your cash flow situation. In terms of forecasting, accountants are, as part of our training, we're encouraged to always be prudent. So not pessimistic, but definitely erring on the side. So, whereas as an entrepreneur, you're always kind of trying to be optimistic and really, set really lofty goals. And if you're an entrepreneurial accountant, you're an accountant that runs your own business, it's like trying to balance between the dark side and the light side.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost a catch-22, right? Like,
yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
Yeah. So, I think in terms of revenue, you want to try and underestimate. In terms of expenses, you want to try and overestimate, especially for expenses that are not regular. If you know that you're paying for a certain subscription or rent or whatever it is, then that's going to be a consistent expense. But other expenses, it's always good to or any type of cash outflow, it's always good to overestimate that, just so you have kind of a scenario, no pun intended, where you're working hard before you hit a point where you're in a bad situation, to get yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, fantastic thoughts and obviously advice for those watching this video as well. But look, thank you so much, Hani. I think you answered some fantastic questions about some of the workflow processes and for small businesses and startups. And obviously, we'll definitely be having you again as part of Cenario Finance School. And thank you for everyone for watching, and you'll keep up to date and subscribe to our newsletter to check out new episodes and content that comes out soon as well to help your small business or startup. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hani. Appreciate it. Bye.
No worries. See ya.